Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. Today we have some malicious compliance stories and our first story of the day is by The Real Dill 6942. Don't drop too many fries. Sure thing. So right now I am working in fast food at a certain place with square burgers making fries and nuggets. Now at said place, it was fine. My coworkers are great, really nice people. They cover me when I clean instead of putting me at the mercy of my managers. Speaking of the managers, they are almost all nice. Notice the almost, it will be important later. Since I am still in high school and I surprisingly have a life, I'm shocked also, I can only work Saturdays and Sundays, with Saturdays being 5 to 9 and Sundays being a mix between 7 to 3:30 and 8 to 4 respectively. Now, since my football season just ended and I am called in on a Friday, this is before I fully knew the worst manager there. Let's call her Vanessa. So I do what I normally do. Drop the fries, pull them up after the timer goes off, drop them into the fry holder, salt them, and put them in a carton ready to eat. You are supposed to also use the drop timers, which is supposed to keep track of how long they are sitting there, and after a certain set time, you throw them away. I see next to no one doing this, so I assumed I shouldn't do it. Well, Vanessa noticed this and began to chew me out because of it, but in a way that was way extra. Think talking like you caught your son having sex when he forgot to take out the trash. This got me a bit peed, but I had no choice but to use them. Now, the reason we don't use them is because it slows things down. You're supposed to drop more fries when the timer says so, but this isn't possible during the lunch or dinner rush without causing major overflow. No malicious compliance yet, trust me, it's coming. Now Vanessa tells me to switch out trash cans, so I let the guy on grill, we'll call him Chad, know to keep an eye on it and to use the timer because Vanessa wanted me to. So I switch them out, and no later than 2 minutes after I'm done, she gets up in my face about not dropping it on the timer. I tried to explain to her why this wouldn't work, but she insisted on it. So I used the timers and slowed down production. The rush died down a bit, and I still used the timers as I didn't want my head chewed yet again for a third time. Nonetheless, Vanessa found a way to scream at me. She told me to drop less fries, idiot. Now I politely told her that she was the one that told me to drop it on said timer. Now what I said and how I said it didn't show the complete riot going in my head. I was saying to myself, "Which you just said drop more." She screams at me to do it anyway. Cue the malicious compliance. So the rush picks back up and I do not drop a single fry. I take box after box from each and every order until there was enough in there for one more large fry. That's when I dropped the amount for another large fry right then. I also followed the left and right basket rule, no basket of fries from the right to go on the left, to really stick it to her. Manager tries to chew me out once again, but I informed her that I was just following her orders. She tries to flip the script, saying she never said that and that she was going to write me up for it. Thankfully, Chad overheard the previous conversations and let her know that yes, she did say that. She tries to put Chad down, telling him to mind his business and threatened him a write-up. Seems like the game's over for us, right? Except it isn't. Our second savior, the other manager working at that point, let's call him Aaron, also overheard the conversation and also let her know that she said that. Now, she can't threaten a write-up on someone on the same level as herself, so what does she do? Excuses herself and him to the back where a glorious shouting match had occurred. We all heard the yells and promptly pulled out our phones. We all see Vanessa storm up here, screams, "Freak you all!" and leaves out the front door in front of a crowd of full people, a 2020 crowd as I like to call them, and put the pedal to the metal on her 2005 Honda Civic. And that was the last of Vanessa. After the fact, we got a new manager that was leagues better than Vanessa, and everything was in balance. And to add salt to her massive wound, I found her recently at another fast food chain where I said to her, "Don't drop too many fries, lady." Do you think Vanessa here shouldn't even be able to have gotten another job that quickly, even at a fast food place? Or do you think it's karma enough for her to end up at a place like that, working a job that surely isn't management level anymore? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by KipsyCakes. Put a lock on our supplies but forget to leave a key for us? Okay, we'll just climb over it. Hello all you wonderful Redditors. I've posted here before about a story that happened at my workplace last year and had a brand new story to share. For the record, this wasn't my compliance, but I was the sidekick in this tale. I work at a resort restaurant that's located in the main hotel building on the property. Due to particular things this year I can't say the name of, our resort and restaurant as a whole have had to go through a lot of changes and needed to adapt to a lot of new and different things. We've also been losing a lot of employees, and it's been affecting our performance and overall motivation. As a result, the resort hired a new head manager for the restaurant, Samuel, to manage the chaos. Samuel got to work almost immediately, resolving any issues he found or was told about by one of the employees and made changes accordingly. One of the things he decided to do was put a lock on what we in our restaurant all lovingly referred to as the cage. The cage is basically a couple tall shelves surrounded by an iron bar fence and gate that housed all our paper supplies like go-to boxes, cups, and bags, along with a few miscellaneous things like crayons and such. Samuel worried that leaving it unlocked the whole time looked unprofessional and people could easily steal some of our supplies whenever they wanted. He told us during a meeting that he'd give keys to each of the managers so any of them could unlock the cage if we needed to get in. I was really skeptical of this idea and worried that it could lead to issues. For one, the managers at my workplace tend to have the ability to teleport, meaning they vanish 99% of the time you need them or you don't know where they are. Sometimes they'd all be unavailable because of a meeting or something, and you'd have to wait or find an alternative answer if one existed. Samuel assured me that I wouldn't need to worry because he'd have a key everywhere in that case. Well, he is the boss, so… About a week or so later, I was working the night shift on a Wednesday and was anxiously counting down the minutes till closing. It had been an incredibly slow day, so we didn't have much staff on duty, and we only had one manager on duty, Jerry. Jerry is not one of our main managers, but manages a neighboring department and has helped us a lot when we're short-staffed or if a manager isn't available. He's a lot like our former boss. Kind, patient, organized, and a bit goofy, so we all get along with him. Jerry had also been absent from work for the past couple of months, he revealed he had spent on medical leave. He had been in a bad accident and broke 3 ribs, but despite being well enough to work, there was still a little pain, or so I remember. An hour before we were scheduled to close, Jerry asked me to start restocking our expo station's paper goods so we wouldn't have to worry about it later on. I nodded and headed towards the cage to collect the supplies. Well, what do you know? The cage is locked. Guess I'll have to ask the manager like Samuel said I'd need to. I told Jerry about the lock and said I needed the key to get in. He was silent for a moment before he turned to look at me with a face that I can only describe as a mix between irritation and disappointment. I don't have one, he said in a sigh. Samuel said he was going to give me one, but he never did and I completely forgot until now. He rubbed his head and we both walked to the cage. As he stared at the heavy-duty lock and chains, he told me to go to loss prevention, our security department, and ask them for the spare key they should have. I did as I was told and left him scratching his head while studying the gate intensely. Unfortunately for us, no one was home. The door was locked up tight and you couldn't see any lights on through the windows aside from the TV monitors that played camera footage. It was likely that all the loss prevention officers were busy doing tasks around the resort property. There was no way of knowing where they were or how long they'd be gone for. I've seen times where they'd be gone for hours, and tonight, we only had less than 1 hour before we really needed to close up everything. Again, it was a slow day and we all wanted to go home as soon as possible. I relayed the news to Jerry and he just sighed again, looking up and down at the cage with a forlorn look. At this point, I think any normal person would just say, heck with it and walk away. It wasn't like we needed to restock that night and could in the morning when Samuel would be there. If we just explained the situation to Samuel, he may have been understanding about it. Not Jerry though. Jerry was determined. No lock in the world was going to keep this man from his destiny of obtaining the priceless paper and/or plastic goods beyond that metal prison. Not even his recovering ribs would stop him. At that moment, Jerry made the executive decision that if we couldn't go through the gate, he was going to go over it instead. The thing about the cage is that the fence is basically just iron bars running horizontally and vertically about 2 inches apart. So basically, there's enough room for a foot to fit in. The fence was also about 6 feet tall and there wasn't a roof covering it. Needless to say, it was possible to jump the cage's fence, but it would be difficult and dangerous. I tried to stop him, offered to do it in his place. I'm 5'23" and probably wouldn't have an issue, but eventually caved in and helped where I could. With a few makeshift platforms, collaboration, and a conveniently placed stepladder, Jerry had managed to get in and out of the cage and we obtained our paper goods. I convinced Jerry to leave the stepladder inside as I was feeling petty and thought it'd be funny for someone to ask why it was stuck in there. Jerry told Samuel everything the next morning as they shared the same shift. Jerry said Samuel wasn't mad, just a bit surprised and a little apologetic. I wasn't there to see it, but I think Samuel got the message, and since then, we haven't had issues with the keys. Never underestimate the power and determination of a restaurant manager and his petty sidekick. Till next time, y'all, peace. In my head, I just love over-dramatizing that moment where Jerry's just standing there like, hand on his chin, just looking over things and finally stopping and just going, okay, I'm going over. Honestly, this sounds like it could be a very good plotline for like a comedy show. Something like The Office or something even more ridiculous or out there than that. This next story is by Elmo's World 123. Want me to write a Santa? If you say so. My teacher was avidly Christian. He was the type to make sure to mention it if religion at all comes up in conversation and proudly say, well, as a Christian, in every situation he could. Note 1, we were in a public school, not some private Jesuit school or something. Note 2, he was a little slow, like not particularly intellectual. The type of person to use interruption and repetitively angrily shouting in a debate rather than actual intellectual arguments that would further both persons' perspectives. Note 3, I'm Jewish. Come Christmas, he wants everyone to decorate his door. He had put wrapping paper over it by writing a note to Santa, including what they want for Christmas. And yes, he did specify Christmas, not the holidays in general. I asked him if I could choose not to because I'm Jewish, and he said, oh, just write something on the door, you'll be fine. Start the malicious compliance. I wrote, Dear Santa, I want good Hanukkah presents this year for Christmas. From Elmo's World. After the activity, he came up to me and asked me why I decided to write that. Start the second malicious compliance. I responded with, my religion doesn't force children to rely on extrinsic motivators to behave in a positive way. We prefer to raise children so that they know right from wrong without needing a fictional character to write them on a naughty or nice list. I was already pissed off from his forcing me to write on the door, so in the few minutes while everyone else was writing, I was thinking up this little speech. He was a little stunned, but he realized that I was probably in the right and didn't report me or anything. Either that or, reference note 2, he didn't quite understand the big and brainy words that I used, like fictional and motivators. He liked me less during the year, but I would say that it was worth it. He wasn't a good teacher at all, so I didn't feel bad about it either. I think it's okay to say Christmas or say Merry Christmas and stuff like that, but if you're a teacher doing a project that involves the entire class that might include multiple religious holidays being celebrated by different children in that class, you need to design it where it can be collaborative and respectful to what other people celebrate and want to celebrate. I think it's a pretty simple concept to understand, and as time goes on, it's becoming more and more unacceptable to just force Christmas on everybody when not everybody celebrates Christmas. And at the very least, considering it was just a door decoration thing, students should have been allowed to just not do it if they didn't want to do it or felt uncomfortable doing it. And our final story of the day is by DM Me Those Ghost Sound Bees. Out of budget? Okay. This is not my malicious compliance, but rather my boss's, but it benefited me nicely. My old job was not exactly unique, and within my company alone, we have around 5,000 people doing it. But what made my position different was that I worked solo in a location, whereas most people had teams of at least 5 or 6. The company decided that they were going to open another solo location due to the low overheads and high profits we tend to make. And so it was decided that I was going to get sent up to help it get set up, as well as teaching the new starter the ropes you don't get shown in a team. My manager found a nice hotel, 5 minutes walk from the location. He asked me if I was happy walking before booking it, which also included breakfast and tea, so the only extra budget would be for lunch. The problem started because it was £10 over his allowed budget, and so it had to be sent off to the cost center for approval. They, of course, checked hotels in the area for cheaper prices, found a few and rejected the hotel and told my boss to find somewhere else. This is where my malicious compliance comes in. He found a really nice hotel, 20 minutes drive from the location, and £1 below his budget and booked it for me, and this was accepted. However, the hotel did not include any food. And the way the company works is they will cover all food costs from the hotel as long as you have receipts. Because it was 20 minutes from the location and I could not drive at the time, taxis were also booked for me to take me to and from work. This ended up costing the company an extra £500 after paying for food and taxis. I got to take full advantage of a 5-star hotel as well as having shorter days at work due to travel time. I mean, if they're gonna be hard on you for £10, I think it's logical enough to just look around and find the best place possible that does fit within the budget and make them pay for everything else if they're going to shortchange you. I would have done the exact same thing myself, and I hope OP enjoyed the 5-star hotel, the food, and the taxi travel. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So which of these stories was your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing and turn notifications on if you haven't so you'll never miss an upcoming video. Any little thing that you do helps the channel grow so much more. Whether it's commenting, subscribing, or just watching the video, thank you all so very much for supporting me right here on the Storytime channel. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all next time right here on the Storytime channel.